Sagittarius is the Archer. It's the fourth and final constellation of Book 1 of the Heavenly Gospel, and it speaks throughout of the Redeemer's triumph. We've already encountered the idea of the dual nature of the Redeemer in the figure of the Centaur, and we meet it again in this constellation. This is the Archer Sagittarius. There's Scorpio off there to the right. Now the figure is dual-natured, divine and human, although the most ancient depictions are simply of a man on a horse drawing a bow, not a centaur. Be that as it may, both versions depict him with a drawn bow in his hands and a quiver full of arrows on his back. Now you can just see the tail sting of Scorpio off to the right there. And the Archer is in fact aiming his arrow directly at the dark red star Arcturus that marks the heart of the Scorpion, symbol of Satan. The heart of our ancient enemy is being crushed by and pierced by the arrow of Sagittarius. Psalm 45 verse 3 following could be describing this very figure. Gird your sword upon your thigh, O mighty one, with your glory and your majesty, and in your majesty ride prosperously because of truth, humility, and righteousness. And your right hand shall teach you awesome things. Your arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies. The peoples fall under you. The Hebrew and Syriac name of the sign is Keset, meaning the archer, as in Genesis chapter 21 verse 20. Ishmael became an archer, a kashat. The Arabic name is al-Qurs, which means the arrow. In Coptic, it's Pimaker, which means the graciousness or beauty of the coming forth. Now this is interesting because the verses preceding the quotation from the Bible to which I just referred say, grace or graciousness is poured into thy lips, therefore God hath blessed thee forever. So the Coptic Pimaker speaks about the graciousness or beauty of the coming forth. It's interesting that people can look at the same figure and identify very different characteristics. In Greek, the name is Toxotes, the archer, and in Latin, Sagittarius, the archer. As usual, the ancient names of the stars that have been preserved support all of these concepts, but I'm afraid I can't tell you where the stars are on the constellation because Bullinger didn't include it. So I'll just tell you what the names are. One is Naim, which means gracious one, an allusion to the same characteristic as in the Coptic Pimaker. In the ancient zodiac of Denderah, he is called Pi Ma'er, meaning graciousness, beauty of the appearing or coming forth. And beneath the hind foot of Sagittarius are the words Kanem, which means he conquers. All wonderfully true of the Messiah Jesus. Another star is named in Hebrew Nehushta, which means the going or sending forth, emphasizing not so much the character as the origin and task of the archer. He comes from heaven to redeem humanity and to overcome our enemy, symbolized by Scorpio. John the Baptist asked Jesus if he was the one that was to come, or should they wait for another? Matthew 11:3. You see, Jesus is Boates, the coming one, and John asked if he was the one who was to come. Now, whilst we don't refer to the Greek alterations of the ancient meanings of the constellations, it's often interesting to see what factors they chose to preserve. For instance, they identified Sagittarius with Chiron, who was described as noble in character, righteous in his dealings, and divine in his power. That's interesting. Aratus said of Chiron, midst golden stars he stands, refulgent now, and thrusts the scorpion with his bended bow. Now these are the shadows cast by the original form of Sagittarius. The scriptures describe both the fearsomeness of the archer and his graciousness in Psalm 64 verse 7 following. It says this, God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly they shall be wounded. So he will make them stumble over their own tongue.
All who see them shall flee away. All men shall fear and shall declare the work of God. For they shall wisely consider his doing. The righteous shall be glad in the Lord and trust in him, and all the upright in heart shall glory. The verses preceding these speak of the wicked and rebellious evildoers as firing numerous arrows at God's people. But it's sufficient for God to fire but one arrow, as it says, God shall shoot at them with an arrow. 1 Peter chapter 3 verse 18 says, Christ suffered once for sins. Once was all sufficient for all time and every generation from Adam to kingdom come. Bullinger quotes a powerful hymn in his book, and I'm going to read that to you. Christ is coming. Let creation from her groans and travail cease. Let the glorious proclamation hope restore and faith increase. Christ is coming. Come, thou blessed Prince of Peace. Amen.